You've checked her phone. You've replayed every excuse in your head. And still, you can't shake that gnawing suspicion she's hiding something. The harder you push for answers, the more she pulls away, leaving you drowning in doubt. That's the cruel trap men fall into, chasing evidence while she perfects her mask. And here's the cost. You lose your peace, your dignity, and years of your life to a lie you can never quite catch. But what if I told you there's one question so sharp it cuts straight through every excuse, every mask, every performance? One question that doesn't just test her loyalty. It forces her to confront herself. Stay with me, because I'm about to give you that question. And once you know it, you'll never chase in the dark again. Before I reveal the question that can expose deception, I want to know who's listening. Hit subscribe, give this video a like, and then drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I read everyone, and it reminds me just how far this message is reaching. Men everywhere from every background who've carried the same suspicion. And trust me, what you're about to hear can end years of doubt with just one question. When a man suspects his partner is cheating, his first instinct is almost always the same: hunt for evidence. He checks her phone when she's in the shower. He scrolls through social media likes and late-night comments. He drives by her workplace or suddenly shows up unannounced, hoping to catch her in the act. And when the paranoia reaches its peak, he sits her down and fires off the dreaded question: "Are you cheating on me?" But here's the brutal truth. You're playing a game she's already trained for. If she is cheating, she's rehearsed her denial. She's prepared her alibis. She's layered her lies with just enough truth to make them believable. The moment you rely on direct interrogation or endless surveillance, you step into the weakest position possible. You've made her the gatekeeper of the truth. She holds the answers, and you're left chasing shadows. That's why most men spiral deeper into obsession. They think one more text message, one more suspicious detail, one more late-night check will finally expose the secret. But instead, they end up exhausted, anxious, and emotionally unstable. The truth doesn't surface. It gets buried deeper under her practiced calmness and well-timed explanations. Let's get clear. Asking, "Are you cheating on me?" is the wrong question. Why? Because it only invites a binary answer, yes or no. And no one intent on hiding betrayal will suddenly choose yes. All you get is denial. And the more you push, the more defensive she becomes, forcing you into a desperate cycle of doubt and dependence on her words. Here's the shift you need. Stop looking for proof like a detective and start positioning yourself like a strategist. Instead of chasing her behavior, you observe the cracks in her consistency. Instead of demanding answers she's already rehearsed, you ask questions that pierce the mask. For example, rather than, "Where were you last night?" a question she's prepared for, you might calmly say, "I've noticed the energy between us feels different. How do you feel about where we are right now?" That's not about catching her in a lie. That's about making her emotional reality visible, because no liar can perfectly synchronize words, tone, and body language over time. So if you've been stuck in the endless loop of searching phones, questioning stories, or setting traps, understand this: you've been playing her game, and when you play her game, you lose your dignity long before you ever find the truth. And that's exactly why most men never uncover betrayal, because they start with the wrong assumption that proof will set them free, when in reality, proof is the last thing you'll ever get. And that leads to the real question. If evidence and direct confrontation don't work, then what does? Here's where things shift. If chasing proof only drags you deeper into doubt, then what can actually cut through the noise? The answer isn't a mountain of evidence. It isn't a screaming match at 2 a.m. It's one single question. Now, let me be clear. I'm not talking about some trick question or clever trap. This isn't about catching her in a slip of the tongue. It's about precision. A well-crafted question doesn't live on the surface where lies thrive. It dives into the place where her words and her conscience collide. That's why it's powerful. Think about it. A liar rehearses facts. She's ready for, "Where were you?" or "Who were you with?" She's got those locked down. But what she can't rehearse is how her body reacts when you ask her to face herself. A true question doesn't just demand information. It demands reflection. And reflection is where the mask starts to crack. For example, instead of asking, "Are you cheating on me?" which is a dead end, you might ask, "Do you feel you're still living in alignment with the promises we made to each other?" That's not a yes or no box she can easily tick. That's a mirror. And when she looks into it, something slips. Maybe it's hesitation. Maybe her voice tightens. Maybe she overcompensates with too much enthusiasm. That's where the truth leaks out. Not in the content of her words, but in the way she struggles to hold herself together. This is why one well-aimed question can outperform hours of interrogation. Interrogation forces her to perform. A single question forces her to reckon with herself, with the relationship, with the gap between who she pretends to be and who she really is. But here's the catch. Asking the right question requires control over yourself. You can't fling it in anger, expecting her to break down. That only arms her defenses. You ask it calmly, almost as if you're inviting her into an honest conversation. That's where the power lies. It's not manipulation, it's clarity. So why is one question more dangerous to a liar than 10 hours of surveillance? Because surveillance fights her story. But the right question, it fights her conscience. And the conscience always leaks through. And this raises the next challenge. If one question can force a crack in the mask, then how exactly does that mechanism work? Why does it break the performance wide open? Here's what most men don't realize. Deception isn't just lying, it's storytelling. When a woman cheats, she builds a narrative in her head long before you ever suspect. She rehearses the lines. She knows how to answer, "Where were you?" with polished ease. She layers excuses so neatly that even she starts to believe them. That's why when you come at her directly, you're not talking to the truth. You're talking to the script. But here's the thing about scripts. They're fragile. They only work on the surface. The moment you shift the question from facts to values, the whole structure starts to shake. When you ask, "Are you proud of the life we're building together?" you're no longer tugging on the details of her alibi. You're tugging on her identity. And that's not something she can fake without strain. Think about it like this. A lie can cover up actions, but it can't cover up conflict. If her behavior is out of sync with the values she claims to hold, her body will give her away. You'll see it in her pause before answering, in the slight crack in her voice, in the way she avoids holding your gaze. She might even overcompensate, saying, "Of course I am." A little too fast, a little too loud, because silence feels dangerous. That's the crack in the mask. This isn't about analyzing every blink or breath like a detective on a crime show. It's about recognizing the mismatch between her story and her state. Words are rehearsed, tone isn't, body language isn't, emotional rhythm isn't. That's where the lie collapses. Here's a practical move. When you ask the question, stay silent after. Don't fill the space. Don't rush to explain yourself. Just let the silence sit. That's when the mask gets heavy. That's when she has to carry the weight of her own split reality, what she's saying versus what she's living. And this is why the right question is so devastating. It's not a trap in your hands. It's a collision inside her. Two worlds she's been balancing, her excuses and her guilt, suddenly slam together. And when they collide, something has to slip out. The real giveaway isn't what she says. It's how she says it. The hesitations, the forced calm, the flicker of irritation, those are the markers of truth trying to break free. That's why the smartest thing you can do is stop hunting for her words and start observing the cracks in her performance. But what exactly should you be looking for when the mask starts to fracture? Because once you know the signs, you'll never miss them again. The truth has a funny way of escaping. Words can be polished, stories rehearsed, but the body never lies. When a woman is carrying the weight of betrayal, her nervous system is doing overtime. And no matter how controlled she thinks she is, that stress leaks out in the smallest, most inconvenient ways. You'll see it in her eyes, the quick glance away, the refusal to hold your gaze for more than a second. You'll hear it in her voice, a sudden tightening on certain words, or laughter that feels just a shade too forced. Sometimes it's in the rhythm. She takes too long to answer, as if she's editing her script in real time. Or she responds too quickly, trying to shut the door before you can look inside. Either way, the performance feels off. These aren't just nervous habits, they're the cost of living two lives. One life is the image she's projecting, loyal, committed, aligned with the relationship. The other is the secret she's guarding. That split creates tension, and tension always leaves a trail. Think of it like a crack in glass. You don't need to smash it with a hammer. The pressure inside does the work. The hesitation, the restless hands, the sudden need to fidget. These are micro fractures in the mask. The more pressure she feels, the more those cracks widen. Now, here's where most men screw it up. They obsess over catching the big slip, some Hollywood-style confession or dramatic meltdown. That's not how real life works. Real life gives you small, consistent leaks. The way her smile doesn't reach her eyes, the way her tone drops when you touch on future plans, the sudden subject change when you mention loyalty. A practical tip: when you ask the right question, stop listening only to the words. Zoom out. Watch the whole package. Her face, her hands, her timing, even her breathing. You're not trying to play detective. You're trying to notice alignment. Do her words line up with her emotions? Do her reassurances carry the weight of conviction? Or do they sound like they're holding something back? That's where the truth hides. And here's the cold part. Once you learn to see this, you can't unsee it. You'll start noticing it everywhere. That's power, but it's also painful, because once you see the cracks, you can't pretend the glass is still whole. But here's the catch. Your ability to spot those cracks doesn't just depend on her, it depends on you. Because the way you ask the question, the energy you bring into that moment, can either bring the truth out or bury it deeper. Most men, when suspicion hits, come in hot. They lead with anger, accusations, demands. And what happens? She snaps into defense mode. Her brain doesn't even process the meaning of your words. It switches to survival. Fight, flight, or fabricate. She gets louder, colder, or more convincing in her denial. And you walk away thinking you pushed her, when in reality, you just gave her a reason to double down. That's the trap. When you let anger drive the moment, you create an enemy, not an opening. And an enemy is always armed. She'll reach for every shield, deflection, blame, the victim card. Suddenly, you're not closer to the truth. You're knee-deep in a battle you can't win. Now flip the script. Imagine instead of storming in with accusations, you ask with composure. No raised voice, no clenched jaw. You sit across from her and speak with the calm curiosity of someone searching for clarity, not a fight. That calmness is disarming. It lowers the wall she's built, because when you're not attacking, she doesn't know which defense to grab. This isn't manipulation. It's strategy rooted in self-respect. You're not begging. You're not threatening. You're choosing dignity over drama. And that choice gives you leverage. A calm question creates silence, and in that silence, the cracks start to show. Here's how you do it in practice. First, your body language. Open posture, steady eye contact, no aggressive leaning forward. Second, your tone. Firm but steady, no sarcasm or sharp edges. Third, your phrasing. Instead of, "Are you cheating on me?" which invites a rehearsed, "No," you frame it as an inquiry into the relationship itself. Do you still feel aligned with the promises we made? That's not a trap question, it's a mirror. And most people can't look into a mirror without flinching if they're hiding something. When you ask calmly, you're not giving her a battlefield, you're giving her a stage. And the performance is where the truth leaks. Anger corners her into playing a role she knows by heart. Calmness forces her to improvise, and improvisation is where the cracks appear. Remember this, you're not trying to win an argument, you're trying to uncover reality. And reality doesn't need shouting to be revealed. It just needs the right conditions to breathe. But here's the kicker. Even with the right question, asked the right way, something deeper happens next. The words and the mask may still hold, but inside her body, inside her emotions, a clash begins. That clash has a name, and it's the biggest giveaway of all. When a woman is hiding betrayal, the most reliable clue isn't in what she says. It's in the gap between what she says and what her body, tone, and energy reveal. That gap is called emotional dissonance. And it's the one thing no cheater can fully disguise. Here's the psychology behind it. To keep a lie alive, she has to hold two realities at once: the life she presents to you and the secret she's hiding. That split creates internal tension, and the body doesn't lie under pressure. It leaks the truth in micro-expressions, in tone shifts, in hesitation. Picture this. She says, "Of course I love you." But her arms are crossed, her shoulders tight, and her eyes flicker away at the end of the sentence. Or she insists, "You mean everything to me," but her voice strains, running a half pitch higher than normal. That's dissonance. The words are sweet, but the delivery is sour. And your gut picks up on it, even if your brain tries to rationalize it away. The key is to stop focusing only on the script she delivers and start observing the alignment. Does the tone match the content? Do her actions echo her promises? Does her timing feel natural? Or is there a pause, a scramble, a filler word like "well" or before she lands on her answer? Those tiny cracks matter. Because truth flows effortlessly, but lies always drag behind. Now here's why this is powerful for you. Most men miss dissonance because they're too focused on the exact words. They want the verbal proof, but liars thrive in verbal sparring. It's their strongest ground. When you learn to watch the emotional signals underneath, you shift the entire balance of power. Suddenly, you're not debating her words. You're witnessing her struggle to keep the mask in place. And let me be clear, this isn't about paranoia. It's about precision. You're not hunting ghosts in every twitch. You're looking for patterns, consistent mismatches between what she presents and what leaks out. A single nervous laugh doesn't prove cheating, but repeated dissonance across conversations, that's the fracture line. Think of emotional dissonance as background static in a song. You can't always name it at first, but you know the harmony is off. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. But here's the problem. When that static becomes noticeable, most people who cheat don't collapse into confession. Instead, they double down with another psychological defense: projection. They'll flip the spotlight back on you, blaming, confusing, even accusing, to keep the attention away from their own cracks. When emotional dissonance starts leaking out, most cheaters don't just sit there exposed. They scramble to protect themselves. And one of the oldest tricks in the book is projection. Instead of facing the guilt inside, she flips it outward and makes you the problem. You'll hear things like, "You've been distant lately," or "You're always so suspicious." Some even turn the tables harder. "You're controlling. You're the reason I feel suffocated." In that moment, she's not just deflecting. She's rewriting the story so she can play the victim. Why does this happen? Because projection reduces her internal guilt. If she can convince herself that you're cold, inattentive, or untrustworthy, then her own betrayal feels less shameful. It becomes understandable. Psychologically, projection is a survival tactic. By assigning her own flaws to you, she creates enough mental fog to keep the lie breathing. And here's the trap. Many men fall for it. You start defending yourself, arguing, proving you're not the bad guy. Suddenly, the focus shifts. Instead of her fidelity being in question, now you're in the hot seat. It's the perfect sleight of hand. Your energy goes into proving your innocence while her guilt stays hidden. The solution is awareness. You can't stop projection from happening, but you can refuse to be dragged into its theater. When she blames you for being cold, ask yourself, is this truly about me, or is it a reflection of her own distance? When she floods you with confusing, contradictory details, remember that overcomplication is itself a signal. Truth is simple, lies are heavy. Another pattern of projection is overreaction. A small question like, "Do you feel good about us lately?" can trigger a defensive storm. Anger, tears, sudden accusations, all designed to overwhelm you so the real issue gets buried. But here's the insight. Disproportionate defensiveness is a red flag. People who are clean don't panic when asked about loyalty. They answer calmly. So how do you handle projection? By staying grounded. Don't fight fire with fire. Don't get sucked into proving your worth. Step back and recognize projection for what it is, a sign of fractured integrity. It's not just her deflecting blame, it's her guilt bleeding through the cracks. But that leaves us with the hardest part. If projection is so slippery, if she can twist the script and make you question your own reality, how do you finally cut through all the noise? How do you pierce every layer of defense and hit the truth at its core? After all the projection, all the confusion, all the defensive storms, there's still one way to break through everything, and it doesn't involve spying, arguments, or dramatic ultimatums. It comes down to one question, a question so deceptively simple that it slices through every mask she's built. That question is, are you still proud of the life we're building together? Notice what this does. Unlike, are you cheating on me? Which only invites denial, this question pulls her into a confrontation with herself. It forces her to measure her current behavior against the very foundation of your relationship. Trust, shared values, and a future built together. It's not about an affair, it's about integrity. Here's why it works. Pride in a shared life can't be faked. If she's been loyal, the answer flows naturally. Calm, grounded, aligned with her body language. But if she's been betraying you, the question creates a collision inside her. On one side is the story she's rehearsed, the perfect defense, the rationalizations, the excuses. On the other side is the reality of her actions, the fracture she knows deep down she's caused. That internal collision is almost impossible to hide. You'll see hesitation. You'll feel the disconnect in her tone. Maybe she avoids your eyes. Maybe she answers too quickly, almost like she's shutting down the conversation. Or maybe she over-explains, adding unnecessary detail to patch the silence. These aren't random quirks. They're the sound of two realities clashing inside her. And here's the beauty of it. You don't need her to confess. You don't need a smoking gun. The answer isn't in the words. It's in the congruence between her words and her emotional presence. This question strips away the performance and forces her true state to leak out. But let's be clear. This isn't just a tactic to expose her. It's a test of you. Can you stand in that moment, calm and steady, prepared to accept whatever truth surfaces? Because if you ask this question, you must be ready for the answer, even if it shatters you. That's the price of dignity. To seek truth without begging, without controlling, without losing yourself. So the next time doubt gnaws at you, don't waste months playing detective. Don't get trapped in endless projection battles. Ask one question. Ask it with clarity. Ask it with calm. And listen, not just to her words, but to her soul's response. Because once you hear that truth, you'll never be the same man again. And that, my friend, is the beginning of freedom. You've seen it now, the endless chase for evidence, the late-night phone checks, the desperate interrogations. It never gives you peace. It only traps you in a cycle of suspicion and dependence. That's why so many men never find the truth. They drown in proof hunting, while their partner grows more skilled at deception. But you've also seen the alternative. Just one question, delivered with calm, delivered with dignity, can cut through months of lies in a single moment. Not because she confesses, but because no mask can survive when pride and integrity are put on the table. Are you still proud of the life we're building together? That's not a trick line, that's a mirror, and the way she reacts will tell you everything you need to know. The power of this question isn't only in exposing her, it's in restoring you. When you stop chasing and start standing, you shift the entire balance. You're no longer the desperate man begging for scraps of honesty. You become the man who seeks clarity, who values truth over comfort, and who refuses to live in the dark. And here's the real win. Once you know the truth, you're free. Free to rebuild if there's still integrity left. Free to walk away if betrayal has poisoned the foundation. Free to reclaim your dignity, your time, and your peace of mind. Because living with doubt is worse than facing pain. Pain heals, doubt corrodes. So I'll leave you with this. Don't waste years chasing shadows. Ask the question, watch closely, accept what you see. That's how you reclaim your life. If this message struck a chord, don't just keep it to yourself. Subscribe to this channel for more straight talk about relationships and the psychology behind betrayal. Hit like, drop a comment with your thoughts or experiences, and share this video with another man who needs to hear it. The more we spread clarity, the fewer men stay trapped in silence. Remember, truth is your ally, dignity is your weapon, and freedom begins the moment you demand both.